is opening containers. So sounds kind of silly. As an OT center though, it could be an OT center. You could also just embed it into your daily activities. But practicing opening containers is just something easy. You can just save household containers. This is like one of those Country Time lemonade containers. This is like a little sports bottle drink that came from the dollar store. This I think is a salad dressing container. This I believe is a peanut container, which I did disinfect very thoroughly. This is, I think, from like a Gordon's Food Supply. It's just like a takeout sort of container. So you really can just get creative. You can use butter containers. Orange juice containers are really good, especially like the Trop 50 or the Simply Juice containers. They have a nice opening on the inside. So as you're, at home and you're getting ready to recycle these containers, maybe think about bringing them into your classroom. So some different things. Before in class, I've done something where I've had like these little bingo chips, and then I have a piggy bank, again, just a dollar store item where the kids put the piggy bank pieces in. And you can have a bunch of containers available where you actually hide some of these pieces, or you put some of these pieces inside the containers, and you could have several. Like I've done several, and every time a kid would take one out, I just put another one in and close it. But you can do that, and then you can pass the containers around. You can work on concepts like if it's older kids that are maybe a little bit more developed, you could say open the container and take out one. So then they would have to open the container, just keep one, and then put the other one back in and shut the container and then pass it to a friend. So that's an activity, and I'm embedding more fine motor in, because then they have to use their eyes and hands coordinated together to put the chip into a slot. You could have just one in the container. You could just keep supplies in the container, so you could just keep all of them in there, and you could have them, practice like dumping them out, which again is another visual motor skill. So that is one activity that you can do. Another thing, you're always like, I'm trying to think of maybe some of what your goals are as well. So as parents, you might be working on matching shapes, or learning how to write their name or how to spell their name. Teachers are working on some of the same things. So just simple of what you could do. I have a bunch of shapes drawn. So I have triangles, and I have squares, and I have circles. So you could put them in a bunch of different containers, or you could just store them in the container, and maybe you have a couple of containers and the kids can pick. So if you're at school and you're doing a center, maybe you have 3 different, matching activities, and each kid would get a container. They would do their activity, and then they could switch. So they would open the containers, and then they could dump out all their pieces. And then also, again, if they don't come out easy, that's great, because you're working on fine motor skills trying to get all the pieces out. If you folded the pieces of paper, that would be even better. Again, they're working on that fine motor skills. But then you could have them put them into piles. So they could have a pile for the squares, a pile for the triangles, and a pile for the circles. So you're working on opening containers, you're working on that bilateral hand coordination, using both hands together, but then you can also tie some of your cognitive goals in with it. You could do the same thing with letters of a name. So you could put one letter in a different container. So you could have, like however many containers. So my first name has 5 letters for Angie. So you could have a different container for each letter. And then you could just keep it in a bag or a basket. And then they could take each of the letters out of the containers. And then they can work on putting their name, or at least the letters of their name, in order. So just a nice way, trying to give you just some different ideas to work on some skills that you want either at school or at home, and then work on that fine motor compartment as well. Opening containers is important if we think about as they get older, they're going into school, they're going to have to learn how to open their milk container, open up their, if they get a bag of apples, opening up those containers. So just using 2 hands together. So at home as well, if you give them a juice box, maybe give them a few minutes. Sometimes I think it's our tendency to just jump in and help, but if you give them a couple of minutes and see what they can work out, and then if they ask for help, then obviously you're going to help them. You don't want them to get frustrated, or if you see they're getting frustrated, jump in, but still try and let them try to do it. Or like if they're opening a package of, let's say, chips or cookies or fruit snacks or little sliced apples, you know, teach them, come in from behind them and put your hands over on theirs and teach them to pinch and pull. In like a milk container, the same thing, teach them to kind of pull it out, use their finger inside to pull open the spout. So just different ways you can work on increasing independence, building their motor skills, and fun with containers. If you have any questions, please contact me. Thanks.